Be careful what you wager.
Black, you lose.
When you play with Lady Luck.
The year is 2011 and Halloween Horror Nights is in year 2 of their new age of darkness. True to that moniker, Halloween Horror Nights 21 is presented by Lady Luck, another original icon for the event. The event itself featured 8 haunted houses, 6 scare zones, and 2 shows. Of particular note for that year are the outstanding collection of houses, which some still hail as the best collection of houses the event has ever done. While most of the houses for that year stand out, there were a few that garnered more attention than others. Some fans may not have been very fond of Lady Luck herself as the icon, which opened the door for one character to stand out more. Horror has a long history of creature feature programs. These programs introduced many to the world of horror, usually at a very young age. Often, these programs would be presented by a host. Many of these hosts have transcended time and are just as memorable as the programs and movies they presented. A lot of these hosts were unique to their regions around the country. Vampira, for example, was from Los Angeles, and Svengoolie found his audience in the Chicago region. Some found more of a national audience. Elvira and Joe Bob Briggs, for example, are probably more well known on a wider scale. However, a weird trend among these creature feature hosts was the state of Ohio. Ohio produced a lot of local creature feature hosts. Dr. Creep, Ghoulardi, and the Ghoul are just a few examples from the state. Halloween Horror Nights is no stranger to the state of Ohio. The town of Cary is home to many settings, incidents, and characters for the event. In retrospect, utilizing a creature feature host for the house, Holidays of Horror, seems like a natural fit given the real-life history of creature feature hosts from the region. In the 1930s, Lawrence Larry Kurtzberg found fame at the young age of 17. He starred in the musical comedy Babes in Arms at Broadway's Shubert Theater. After many years, Larry retired and even took up a new hobby, taxidermy. In the 1970s, Larry began to grow restless, and he longed for that spotlight once again. His search for work pointed him to a talent agency in the town of Cary, Ohio. He was looking for anything he could, theater, television, and even radio. It wasn't long after he contacted the agency that he received a call. A lady named Moira presented him with an opportunity on television. The role was that of H.R. Bloodengutz for WKNB Ohio's Midnight Horror Show. Moira was understanding in that the job didn't come with the prestige of theater, but the pay was good. She also presented him with a dilemma. Larry would have to leave his taxidermy business in order to participate. If he didn't, the agency would not represent him. Really reaching for that fame once again, Larry took the offer. The character of H.R. Bloodengutz bore a resemblance to Grandpa Munster from the show The Munsters. The Midnight Horror Show was your typical late-night creature feature fare. It presented all kinds of horror films with H.R. Bloodengutz appearing sporadically. He would crack jokes and liven up the time during the show's wraparound segments. The Midnight Horror Show proved to be a big hit for the station. As the show grew popular, so did Larry's ego. The show itself would soon begin to produce its own horror films. These films would generally be set around holidays. Everything from Valentine's Day to Arbor Day would be represented. These episodes were often violent and went beyond the norm. During this time, Larry's ego ballooned even more. He started to take the role of Bloodengutz very seriously and demanded to only be addressed as such, taking method to a whole new level. About a year after the start of the original episodes, the ratings of the show plummeted. Viewers were turned off by the more violent nature of the original programming. The drop in viewership also forced advertisers to begin pulling out. With the loss of revenue and the falling ratings, the station decided to cancel the show. The show's producer, a man by the name of John Reynolds, wrote Larry a letter telling him of the show's cancellation. By that point, Larry was deep into the character of H.R. Bloodengutz, and he lost himself. The cancellation of the show caused Larry to rage. During one final broadcast of the holiday-themed episodes, H.R. Bloodengutz rounded up members of the crew and producer John Reynolds. Bloodengutz tortured them during the airing of the show for all to see as he hosted the Midnight Horror Show one last time. Local authorities eventually made it to the station to stop Larry, and he was arrested. While members of the crew survived their encounter with H.R. Bloodengutz, John Reynolds was not so lucky. He succumbed to his wounds at the hospital later. Larry eventually was held accountable for his crimes and was sent to prison for life. he wasn't the least bit sorry for what he did either. The House H.R. Bloodengutz Presents Holidays of Horror would take guests into WKNB Ohio's TV station. The Q video would play the wraparound segments of the broadcast and showcase H.R. Bloodengutz himself. He would often lament the cancellation of the show, and guests would see glimpses of him torturing John Reynolds, blaming him for the cancellation. Once guests entered the house, they would come face to face with Bloodengutz and see him torture John Reynolds in person. Guests would walk through various versions of the demented holiday films. These included Valentine's Day, named VD2, The Recurrence, St. Patrick's Day, named Get Lucked, Easter, named The Feaster Bunny, President's Day, named President's Day 2, The Re-Election, Independence Day, named Uncle Sam Wants You, Arbor Day, named When the Boughs Break, Your Limbs Will Fall Off, Thanksgiving, named Thanksgiving, and Christmas, named Ho Ho Homicide. Throughout the experience, Bloodengutz would appear on TV introducing the next film. Guests would also see Bloodengutz continuing to torture John Reynolds. Holidays of Horror would feature a lot of memorable elements for fans. Bloodengutz, of course, was one of them. The giant mutated Feaster Bunny and gun-wielding elves in Santa's workshop are just a few of the other demented delights inside the house. In the President's Day segment, guests walked through the Oval Office. Sitting on the Resolute desk was a briefcase with a countdown clock and a red button. The button was a GAT, or guest-activated trigger. When the clock hit 0, a blinding flash would go off in the window, simulating a nuclear explosion. Guests could also hit the red button to detonate the bomb. At the end of the house, Bloodengutz appears on a TV once again, ending the broadcast and cutting John Reynolds' throat. Like Bloody Mary in 2008, Lady Luck had deep connections to the overarching stories going on at the event. In this case, it was the houses. The gambling thing for HHN 21 tied into Lady Luck being an entity of fate or chance. In Larry Kurtzberg's instance, Lady Luck disguised herself as Moira, the representative from the Cary, Ohio talent agency. She presented him with the dilemma of taking the role and giving up his taxidermy business, or the agency would not represent him. Obviously, Larry took the role. H.R. Bloodengutz has gone on to be a huge fan favorite. There were some at the time that didn't care for the dark humor presented in the house, but overall it left quite the impression. In recent years, some have even lobbied for Bloodengutz to get his own event. It seems that fans try to wish Bloodengutz back into existence every year. The character eludes all the time. Who knows when H.R. Bloodengutz may take the spotlight once again. It may be time for a revival of the Midnight Horror Show. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the fog. I'm HHN Legacy, and thanks for watching.